A 50G crash at Suzuka turned driver frustration into an open revolt against the FIA, with Max Verstappen leading the charge against what he calls the most dangerous racing conditions in modern Formula One. Oliver Bearman was fighting Franco Colapinto's Alpine for 17th place at the Japanese Grand Prix on the 29th of March 2026, and on the approach to Spoon Curve, Bearman activated his energy boost to attempt an overtake. Colapinto's Alpine sat in a lower energy deployment state at that moment, which created a closing speed of 45 kilometers per hour between the two cars. Bearman was carrying 308 kilometers per hour when he tried to take avoiding action, went onto the grass, lost control, skidded back across the track and through the runoff area, and hit the barrier with a 50G impact. He walked away with a right knee contusion, but the crash exposed a problem that drivers had been warning about for months. The 2026 power unit regulations sit at the root of this crisis. A mandated 50-50 split between internal combustion engine power and electrical power means the battery can produce up to 350 kilowatts, and cars harvest and deploy that electrical energy at different times during a lap. A car in full deployment mode can carry 50 to 60 plus kilometers per hour, more speed than a car that has depleted its battery or dropped into a lower deployment state. Previous regulation eras kept the speed differential between two cars at full throttle on a straight relatively small, somewhere around 5 to 15 kilometers per hour depending on downforce levels and engine modes. What the 2026 regulations have introduced are speed differentials of 45 to 60 plus kilometers per hour during normal racing, and that is not a yellow flag scenario or a crash situation. That is two cars both racing at full throttle on the same piece of track. Verstappen has been the loudest voice against these regulations from the very beginning. During preseason testing in Bahrain back in February 2026, he called the new cars Formula E on steroids and described the driving experience as not very Formula One-like. He also pointed out that he had raised these exact concerns back in 2023. When I said those things in 2023, I immediately got a lot of criticism, he explained. They told me no, that's not correct and it won't be like that. But now it turns out that for 90% it actually is like that. By the time the season opener in Australia arrived on March 8, Verstappen compared the racing to a video game. If you enjoy that, then okay. But that's what I do at home when I play Mario Kart, he put it. At the Chinese Grand Prix a week later, he went further. It's terrible. If someone likes this, then you really don't know what racing is about. It's not fun at all. It's playing Mario Kart. This is not racing. You're boosting past, then you run out of battery the next straight, they boost past you again. For me, it's just a joke. After Bearman's crash at Suzuka, Verstappen aimed his criticism directly at safety. One guy is completely stuck with no power, basically. And the other one uses the mushroom mode and it can be 50-60 kilometers per hour difference, he noted. And that's when he made a pointed comment about using safety as leverage. Well, if it's all about safety, it's easy to fix things. You can use safety for a lot of stuff. So maybe we should use the word safety for it, to finally make some changes. What stood out most was his hint at leaving the sport entirely. You also wait for 24 races. This time it's 22. But normally 24. And then you just think about, is it worth it? Or do I enjoy being more at home with my family? Seeing my friends more when you're not enjoying your sport? Verstappen was far from alone in this. Carlos Sainz, who serves as a GPDA director, delivered one of the strongest warnings after the Japanese Grand Prix. There were a lot of big moments there in the first 3 laps while we were all sorting out our energies. It was only a matter of time. The first big crash was going to happen, he warned. Sainz drew a direct comparison to his own crash history, pointing out that Bearman's 50G impact exceeded his own 46G crash in Russia in 2015. And this is where it gets worse, because he then raised the question that should concern everyone. Just imagine what kind of crash you could have in Vegas, Baku, etc. Those are street circuits with concrete walls and minimal runoff, which means what happened to Bearman at Suzuka, a track with generous escape roads, could turn catastrophic at those venues. Sainz also called out the FIA for prioritizing team input over driver feedback. That's the problem when you listen only to the teams, that they will think the racing is okay because maybe they're having fun watching it on the TV. But from a driver's standpoint, when you are racing each other, and you realize that there can be 50 kilometers per hour speed delta, that's actually not racing. There's no category in the world where you have this kind of closing speeds. Lando Norris, the defending world champion, echoed that frustration from the Australian Grand Prix onward. I think everyone knows what the issues are. It's just the fact it's a 50-50 split and it just doesn't work, he stated. He also highlighted a terrifying reality about the closing speed danger. When someone hits someone at that speed, you're going to fly and you're going to go over the fence and you're going to do a lot of damage to yourself and maybe to others. Asked about the Japanese Grand Prix race afterwards, Norris responded with pure sarcasm. Really? I haven't even talked about it this year. It was the best race I've ever seen. Lewis Hamilton's position carried a different tone. At the Chinese Grand Prix, he called the 2026 racing the best racing that I've ever experienced in Formula One, praising the ability to follow cars closely, but he remained clear about the deployment problems. Do I love the power of deployment? Absolutely not. I'm actually really disappointed. Hamilton also raised a governance concern shared by the other drivers, stating that F1 drivers have no voting rights and that the FIA is only listening to teams. The FIA responded with an official statement acknowledging the contribution of high closing speeds in Bearman's crash and confirmed that meetings were scheduled in April to review the regulations. An F1 Commission meeting was set for April 9 between the FIA, F1 management, and all team technical directors, while Nicolas Tumbazes, the FIA single-seater director, confirmed that changes would arrive for the Miami Grand Prix on May 1 to 3. Potential adjustments under consideration include increasing superclipping power to allow easier battery charging, decreasing deployable electrical power, introducing light signals on cars to indicate energy state to following drivers, and boosting IC power via higher fuel flow. Drivers remain skeptical that meaningful change will come quickly enough. Sainz put it bluntly. I don't care if we slow down a second per lap, we have to find a solution. Norris was even more direct about driver input being ignored. It doesn't matter what we say. If only the fans enjoy it, that's all that matters. The history of F1 safety tells us that it often takes a tragedy to force real change. Jules Bianchi's death at Suzuka in 2014 led to the virtual safety car, and the death of Antoine Hubert at Spa in 2019, a crash defined by closing speeds, reminded the world how lethal speed differentials can be. Romain Grosjean's fireball in Bahrain in 2020 vindicated the halo device. The question facing the FIA right now is whether they will act before the next disaster or after it. If you found this breakdown valuable, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss our coverage of the biggest stories in Formula One, and let us know in the comment section what you think about the 2026 regulations regarding the safety of drivers. I'll see you in the next one.